All right, it's me again. It's been a minute, but I've been putting this off for a couple of weeks now, but I finally got around to it, so let's get started. Recently, I just got back from a trip from the to the Everglades in Florida. We stayed in Homestead, Florida, which was right in between the Everglades National Park and Biscayne National Park. So we went to both of those and we did some other things in southern Miami and that whole panhandle area of Florida. It is currently June 6th. We were gone from the May 13th to the 18th, I want to say. So I've definitely been putting this off for a minute because I just kept forgetting because I got back and started working. But here we are. So I'm just going to go through the pictures like I did for the Grand Canyon trip. And yeah. So this was the first picture. These are sea grapes. They were on a tree on a beach. Actually, this beach, this is the same tree, right outside of Homestead. This is just like a little atoll, and then there's ocean right there. This was a little beach in right outside of Homestead. Actually, like just across those trees, there's another dock, and that's one of the docks that's actually part of Biscayne National Park. So we didn't realize how close we were to it, but that was pretty cool. So the first day we got in, we didn't get in until like 4, but then we went over to this and we hung out and swam in the pool a little, and then got ready for the next big day. Only funny thing that happened here was I picked up some shells, and there was a table somewhere over here, maybe over here, where me and Molly just were walking around this, and some random guy offered us weed, so that was cool. This was from the same park. This bird I saw around a number of areas. Apparently it's called a common myna, like M-Y-N-A. They're related to starlings, and they're not native to there, but they look kind of cool. So this was not the day that we went to Biscayne, but I had my mom take a picture of me there. This was a cool spider that was by the pool. I think it was called like a spiny-backed orb weaver. I couldn't get a good picture of the top of it, but there was a bunch of them. So during the second day, we went to the actual Everglades. It was really cool. It was like 88 and humid, but I had a great time, and you're going to see lots of pictures. So this was the sign that we decided to stop by. I took a picture of this because it was all nice and rooty. I took pictures of just so many cool trees. They had air plants literally everywhere. Like this tree was just one of the first ones that I noticed, but you can see how many they are and different types and sizes, and they're clumps, and some of them are blooming. They're just everywhere. So this is why we were driving into the Everglades. I took a picture because the sky was really pretty. But the cool thing is this looks like a giant field, but if you stepped into it, it's all kind of swampy. You know, if, on a right day, if it's wet enough, you'd sink down. This is actually like a meter of how tall it is. So a name that we heard while we were there describing the Everglades is a river of grass. So the entire section of the Everglades and what used to be more of southern Florida, but a lot of it has been developed, was basically one gigantic estuary river that slowly flowed. So a lot of it has been built up now, but what was left is really cool. So these were called an eastern locust or something like that. I don't remember, but they were just coming up and they were really cool. So we got to see them when they were juveniles, and I picked them up a couple of times. They were funny. So when they're this darker color, this like orangey color, they're getting to be adults. You can tell that its wings aren't fully grown. So that's about as far as we saw most of them have their wings, because they were still coming up for the year. There was lots of them on this one signpost right when we got in. I think there's a picture of them somewhere. Okay, maybe they're not, but there's the juveniles of these. I have a picture later, are like a dark black with yellow. This was a panther crossing we thought was cool. This is just a water hyacinth, I think, but it was pretty. This is an anhinga, or a hinga, however they say it. They call them snake birds because they got this cool snake neck, and they use it to like spearfish into the water. And like cormorants, they have to dry their wings out after they go underwater. So we saw lots of those. I believe this was one of the first areas we went, which was the Anhinga Trail and the Gumbo Limbo Trail. So that's what was the first stop on the main day. This is a green heron that was right. The Anhinga's like over here out of sight. I remember this was right by the visitor center. This is also right by the visitor center, but you can see those beautiful skies again, and all this water was like teeming with life. There was so many Florida gar and Oscars and cichlids, and the Oscars and cichlids aren't supposed to be either, but they were still cool. And there was a bass and something called a warmouth, which I think was like a type of bluegill, but the Florida gar were really cool. So this was me being excited because I could pick up one of the palm tree things because they're so freaking big. When we picked this up, we actually found a lizard underneath it, which is right there. This is, I think, the only time we actually managed to catch a lizard because, god damn it, they're fast. So this is just a little brown anole, but me and Molly were giddy. Alright, so this was another fun one of my favorite things. Florida tree snails. It's very wet in the Everglades, and what likes wet things? Snails like wet things, and they are thousands of these babies. They come in anywhere from like bright black and, well, I guess black isn't bright, but black and orange to yellow to beige to this kind of muted off-white color to like bleached white. They're all over and they're super cool. They're probably about like 2 inches. Some of them are smaller, but I took a lot of pictures. This is a different kind of snail that I actually only saw once. I don't know what kind of snail they are, a different type of tree snail, but they were having sex, so I thought that was cool. So this is on the Gumbo Limbo Trail, and it really just felt like you were walking through a goddamn rainforest. One thing I do remember is that, you know, so you're on this paved area for the most part, and it was only like a half a mile, but it was, the temperature was different, like out in the open versus in the actual like canopy, and you can hear stuff all around you. There's birds calling, there's like bugs going crazy. There's, you could hear basically right above the tree line, because the trees aren't that tall, but because it's kind of swampy, they can't have a super established root system, but right above the tree line, you can just hear hundreds of flies, both dragonflies, bees, wasps, tons and tons of flies. We got bit to shit by horse flies, but that's okay, because it was cool. I just like the root system on these fellows, and you can see the kind of acid deposition getting through the bedrock there and making some mud. This was another cool snail. I don't know what he is, but he looks cute. He's got a nice little face. Another tree snail. A baby tree snail. You can see he's kind of dark. I only managed to find 1 or 2 shells of these guys that were even kind of intact, so I took them, but they got a little... They're really fragile once they are on the ground, so they kind of broke, but that's alright. They were really cool. So I picked them up a couple of times, and I really like them. They're really cool. This was a giant-ass tree with a bunch of ferns and moss grown out of it, but I liked the perspective of him going up the tree. That's just a cool wasp. So there was these giant, I think they were called strangler figs, but they were a tree that looked all viney and warped like this, and they'd kind of cling to another tree and climb up it. They were everywhere. They were really cool. I'm going to say everything's cool, just like in the last video, but that's okay. There's a Spanish moss hanging from a lot of trees in addition to the air plants, so I really like that. Here's a decent picture. There's a couple of the cichlids, and I think that might be an Oscar, but I can't really tell. That's definitely a fish. Oh, so this one was really cool. While we after the Gumbo Limbo Trail, we started walking up the Ahinga Trail. My mom was tired at this point, and this was like straight in the sun, but along like a thing of water that then went out into a more open area. But this guy was a soft-shelled turtle, but he looks like he's got a little pig snout. This thing was like bigger than my torso, and it just crawled up and was just sitting there right against the rail. It was so cool. He was just hanging out. We didn't touch him because sometimes they bite, but you know, they were really cool. Here's a gator. We saw many, many gators. I kept track of them. I think the final gator count was like 38 or something like that. So this was at the end of the trail where it kind of opened up, and there was a ton of fish in here, and dragonflies everywhere, and herons flying over. This was a really cool tree full of, I mean, just totally caked in air plants. And you can see a bunch of them are flowering. There's another Anhinga. I think they were really cool. I got a pin of them. I think they're the state bird of Florida. I don't remember, but they're like the unofficial mascot of like southern Florida, and I really like them. There was a better close-up of the flowering air plant. Okay, here's a great picture of one of the gars. This one was just really cool. They had a lot of lily pads and spatterdock in the water. I don't know if that's native or not, but it was kind of cool to see something that we have back home. But these gars were huge. Like, this one isn't even that big. We saw ones like twice this size. We saw ones like not even a fourth that size. But I don't know what the hell they're eating, but they're really cool looking. This is a button bush just blooming. I thought it was cool because we have those at home too. There's a gator that went right by us. You can see how close we are. Another fish. So there is what color are the legs? This is a great white heron. There was like 50 types of, like, not actually 50, I think there's like 13 different herons and egrets in the area. I didn't see them all. The one I really wanted to see was a tricolor heron, which we saw very, very briefly because it like stopped, landed, and then immediately took off again before I could take a picture. So I'm pretty sure it was a tricolor. I was pretty happy about it. We mostly saw great blues, great white egrets, and a few snowy egrets and cattle egrets. We got some pictures in there, but snowy egrets in the future have black legs, black bill, and like yellow feet. Great white egrets have yellow bill, yellow legs, and they're bigger. So this was an area of Scotch pine. This used to be all over the Everglades, but it has been actually more than just the Everglades. It used to be all over Florida, but now it has been, actually I think it's slash pine. Yeah, it's slash pine. Now it's very, very limited, and there's some areas in the Everglades that have it, and that's basically it. So it was really cool to see something that that's just a pretty flower, that probably isn't around any other places really. Like maybe you can find some random slash pine, but an established like lowland forest like this in its proper swampy habitat, and it's a really low soil level because of bedrock, it's kind of eaten away and it's pretty high. I mean, you're only like 3 or 4 feet above sea level was the highest I saw. So really cool. There's me and Molly. We were very sweaty but happy. There's a really pretty tree snail. Took a nice picture of him. Actually, you can see that he just pooped right there. There was these all different types of palm trees. I didn't know there were so many freaking types of palm trees, and I wish I knew them, but we were excited because they were just so big and they were laying around everywhere. It was very cool. We actually saw some ones like this that were flowering, and they smelled heavenly, and there were so many bees going in and out of them. Another pretty snail. Yeah, see, there's one that's flowering right there. It doesn't look like much, like it doesn't look like what you'd think to be a flower, but you know, that's how a lot of grasses are, because palm trees are related to grasses. If you're getting really technical, they're not like a true tree in the way that you'd think of a tree. But very cool. It was awesome that we were there when they were flowering. I didn't know they would do that. It was mostly these ones that were flowering, but we saw some of the other kinds that were... This is just another cool looking grasshopper. I took a lot of pictures of those. So this was Rock Reef Pass, I believe. Yeah, so these are all dwarf cypress. So they're bald cypress, but they've been dwarfed because they live in shallow, kind of acidic, swampy soil, so they don't get very tall. But they had all of these bulbosas in them. Oh, they were flowering and they were so sexy. Oh, this was the only native lizard I think we saw for most of the time. This was a coal skink, or maybe a 5-line skink. I don't remember, but he was cool. He sprinted right off. This was a crow that this was, the path that this was on was just some random one. It was like Panaoki Overlook or something like that. It wasn't very long. It was just to look around. But somebody right in front of us had given this crow peanuts in the parking lot, and it was following them, so I thought he was funny. Yeah, this is the overlook. Yeah, it doesn't say, but I mean, you can see it's pretty cool, but just flat. Totally flat. Like, this was a little ramp up. It was probably the highest elevation for miles. Oh, these were a cool, I think they were called like white spider lily, but we saw them in different fields, and this was me trying to get a picture. I get a better picture later. This was a softshell turtle that we saw crossing the road, so of course I had to pick him up and move him. Oh, that's the picture of the tricolor. We just barely managed, I guess I did get a picture of him, but you can barely even see him. But yeah, this was on the way to Mahogany Hammock, I want to say. But I thought that this was kind of cool too, because these have been here for so long and been through so many storms and water and humidity that they're all kind of warped and bendy like that. That's just a brown and knoll. We saw a lot of those, but they never stop being funny. This was a teeny tiny air pant. I probably found ones even smaller than this, but you would find ones like bigger than like half of you all the way down to not even as big as this. So they were really cool, and I wish I could have taken them, but it's a national park, so I wasn't going to do that, but you know, I wanted to. This is I think that is the one mahogany tree that we saw, but you can see it's just cool how much life is coming off of it. That's something me and Molly were both like, how is there just... It's amazing how much life is everywhere. There's bugs and moss and ferns and trees and palm trees, and uh, birds and alligators and lizards and everything. The only thing you don't really see is small mammals. When we got out to some other places, like I went to the botanical gardens or maybe in some parking lots of shopping areas, there's some squirrels you might see, but like that's it. And they're not like beefy like Ohio squirrels. They've just all the small mammals down there are basically destroyed because of the Burmese pythons. They had these gigantic ferns, like literally like 6 feet long. They were so cool. There's me excited about a snail. There's another soft-shell turtle. We had a count going for the soft-shell turtles, too. I think we got to, like, 15 or so. They're pretty cool. This was in the Flamingo Visitor Center, which was temporarily closed because, like, apparently the actual visitor center was destroyed by a hurricane years prior. But this was... So we basically went into the park from the right side where Homestead was, and we made the slow meander down all the way to the coast where the Flamingo Visitor Center was. So the temporary visitor center was basically just like a mobile home that was set up, but they had these beetles crawling all over. I just thought he was cool. That was... Molly stamped that on my hand. We thought it was funny. Oh, I went all the first day trying to find a stupid ibis or however you say it because I think they're funny and I really wanted to see one, and we finally saw one when it landed across the parking lot from us when we were eating lunch. And it was just waddling around in this puddle, but I was very excited. Yep, so this was at the, I think it was called Flamingo Beach, and we actually came back to this on the last day. Mind you, this is still all in the first day, so that was kind of cool, but all these islands out here are still part of the park. You have to just kayak or boat to them. So we didn't do that, but it was really cool that it's like, wow, it just keeps going. So this was at the very end, so... That's the ocean. Haven't seen that in a while. There's another one. I picked him up for a while, and he tried to eat my hand, but they can't, like, break the skin, so it was just more funny than anything. There's me pretty excited. I sent that one to Professor Stanton. He thought it was funny. There's a nice picture of a heron. Pretty good. It wasn't even that far away. He was just hanging out, doing his thing. And there's an anhinga that was, like, the heron's right here, the anhinga's right there. Oh, no, yeah, you can't see it, but... They were cool. Yep, see, there it is. There's me pogging at the heron. Okay, so here's that better picture I was talking about of the spider lilies. They're just really pretty, and they would just they'd just be a little cluster of white in the middle of the grassy-looking field. So, where was I? Oh, yeah. This is a better picture of that swamp white spider lily, or whatever it was called. They smelled really good, and they were really pretty. So this was on... The second day, we went to the north part of the Everglades and saw, like, the Shark Valley Trail and, I think it was called, like, Otter Hammock. We didn't go all the way to the bottom of the Shark Valley Trail because it was, like, 7 miles and it was, like, stupid hot and we missed the last tram and didn't want to rent a bike. So we just walked around a little, and by we, I mean Molly and me. But it was really cool because we saw a shit ton of baby gators, which we'll get to in a second. So there was 2 gators in here that we were pointing at because we thought it was cool. Because it's just like we're standing on the path, like 13, 20 feet over there. Gators, they don't care. There's another green heron. I think it was near a nest, but I don't have the nest in the picture. There was these big sliders. I think they were called like yellow-bellied cooters, but they were like the size of like a dinner plate. They were really big and they were pretty cool. There's 2 more gators. This is the same one, but he was swimming along. They just don't give a shit. You're like within like 6 feet of a gator. They don't give a fuck. This is a pretty butterfly I managed to get a picture of. There was butterflies all over. Tons of tiger swallowtails, and I don't think I ever got a picture of one, but it was called a long-winged zebra butterfly. Absolutely gorgeous. They just flutter around. They're really pretty. So this was a gator that had just come up to sun itself, and we are within like 4 feet of it, and stupidity ensues. Molly may or may not have touched its tail. I won't say. So, this was the first batch of gators we found. So, I mean, like, just in this picture, you can see there's one back here, there's one right here, there's one right here, there's one here, there's 1, 2, 3 here. So, there was, I think 14 in this area. They weren't very big, but there was another one. Maybe did I get a picture? No, I didn't, but the mom was just hanging out with them, so they were pretty cool. So we were so excited we came back and showed my mom, And then she was like, "Yo, yeah, I saw some," because there was like a drainage ditch off the one side of the parking lot, and there's just a mama with like 6 babies hanging out. So apparently we were there during baby gator season. We didn't even know. The really sad thing is that when we were talking to somebody else that worked in the park later, they're like, yeah, not many of the gators make it to adulthood. Like, of all of the, like, 20-something that each gator has, maybe one will live to be, like, 3 or 4. Because they get eaten by larger fish, larger gators. They get eaten by great blue herrings, is apparently a huge predator for them, which I didn't think a heron could eat a gator, but apparently they can. Oh, this... We stood here and watched these for a while, and we pointed them out to other people. They made the little sounds. The little, like, laser beam, like, pew. Very cute. We were very excited about that. So this was that otter hammock trail. There was a lot of these holes in the ground from where the bedrock had been eroded, so there was, like, a foot down and then just more bedrock, so that was kind of cool. We were just really happy, and there was more gators on the way out. I didn't take that many pictures of us, but I have some that Molly sent me, so we'll go through those at the end. This is that same batch of gators. Oh, I finally got a picture of one of these. It was called like a Halloween pumpkin wing or something. There was like, my mom bought a guide of the dragonflies of the Everglades, and there was so many. There's an actual picture of an Oscar there, because there was a lot of them. Just a ton of these fellas. Oh, okay, so this was when we were in... So after we left Shark Valley, we kept going to the Big Cypress National Preserve, which is like basically connected to the Everglades, just a little north of it. So this was that area. I was very excited, but they had shit tons of bromeliads as well. And I was very excited about all the cypresses because I've really never seen an adult cypress. And they have these awesome root structures and all these things coming up. And at first I saw these and were like, are those weird mushrooms? But no, baby. Those are knees. So cypress knees. So cypresses that grow in like swampy waters. Like you can see the water lines. The water was pretty low. Like this was kind of dry. But in certain parts of the year, it gets like, you know, all the way up here. And since they're adapted to living in this kind of area, they put up these weird little root projections that they call cypress knees, like if you were bending your knee and sticking it up, so that the roots can still have gas exchange, so they're not totally underwater. But they only do this when they're pretty happy, when they're pretty old, and they're in the right environment. So it's something I've never seen, and probably might never see anywhere else again, but they were very cool. Even on some of, like, the retention ponds in, like, a shopping plaza we were in or by the hotel, there was, you know, a little bit of cypress knees just hanging out. So that was pretty cool. I was very excited about them. There was 2 little anoles on one of the knees. This was a panorama I took of that same picture. The area, we only went on one little trail. It wasn't even that big, but I just was so happy. It was so cool. You can see all these knees and these healthy, beautiful cypress trees. Very exciting. Sexy knees. I just kept pointing them out to Molly, being like, those are some hot-ass knees. There's another cooter. So when you walk to the end of this, it kind of opened up again. You can see all these little flowers. I have no idea what they are. Something for the lilies. Yeah, there's a nice picture of them. Actually, I think that's a turtle head right there. I might be wrong. Oh, this was some sort of... I think this was called like a swamp apple. I just thought it was cool. Oh yeah, this was by the parking lot before we got further into the cypress forest. But apparently the way cypresses grow is a lot of times they form cypress mounds is what they call it. So they'll kind of get to an area that's slightly higher elevation or has slightly more soil or is a little less wet, and a whole bunch of them will grow. You can kind of see it in the back here. But they start low and then they get taller, so they kind of form these type of mounds on the horizon. But I took this picture because, one, you could get a nice profile of this little tree. This is kind of the size they were in most of the Everglades. And then, 2, the flowers are pretty. So there's a picture with the Big Cypress National Preserve. And if you actually look right here, oh, what's that, a little orange thing? Oh, it's a friend! Check that out! I was very excited. I just kept picking them up because I thought they were funny. So this was by the visitor center for Big Cypress, like same parking lot. We counted like 17 alligators just hanging out in this waterway along the main road by the visitor center. The visitor center wasn't even open, but we looked at all the fellas. You can also see, like, there's a couple more gars right there, so that's cool. So, gators. This was, I think maybe it was like albino or something, but it was like golden. Like here, this is a normal gar, and this thing was all the way across the pond, but I could see it plain as day. I don't know how the hell it survived, but it looked cool as shit. So, shiny Pokemon are real. Shiny gar. There's a bunch more. You can see they're little. Some of these were called walking. Like this guy right here that kind of looks like a pleco. That's called a walking catfish. I don't think they're native, but they were kind of cool because they would like come up and then swim back down. There's another cichlid you can see. These were just a really pretty ground cover. They weren't very big, like maybe like this is like a centimeter and a half across. Not very big. They were right underneath a flagpole, but I just thought they were cool. I think they were called like Mexican clover or something like that. I could be very wrong. So this is that juvenile I was talking about. So this is that same species, but it's just pretty young. So it's got this, it looks like it might be different, but then you're like, oh, well, this is the same. The stripes are kind of in the same place. So I thought that was pretty cool. I picked this one up and gave it to a little girl while we were waiting in line for the airboat ride, because we did end up going on an airboat ride, but it was one actually like sanctioned by the park, and they actually did a pretty good job, because I was worried it would be like, oh, check out the gator will kill you and the people die in the Everglades, ooh. But it was actually pretty respectable. You know, they kept their distance from the animals, and we're in an area that was, they stuck to the path, so it was fun, and I think it was a respectable business. So this was on the ride. I didn't realize it. We're only, like in most areas, we were only on like maybe 6 inches of water, but the way that the airboat's designed, it just can be up there totally fine. At one point, like every time we took a turn, he would like drift the boat, like, you know, picturing like Fast and Furious drifting the car. He'd do that, but with the boat going like 35 miles per hour, maybe more. And it was just really fun because it would be like, woo, and water would go flying everywhere. And I was right on the side, so it was pretty cool. But yeah, when we're like, why'd you do that? And he's like, well, if you slowed down to turn, the boat would get stuck because you're only in like 2 inches of water. So you need that momentum so you can like glide across it. So there's a dragonfly I caught, and there was a great blue heron. It was kind of cool. There's an egret in the background and another one, because you could finally be out in that river of grass. You could see that, oh yeah, this isn't just a field. It's swampy in here. There was the heron taking off. So this was insane. This looks like I zoomed in on this gator. I was literally within like 2 feet of it, because it just came up to the side of the boat. She didn't care. She was just hanging out. Look at, like, literally, like, right on the bottom is the boat. There was, like, 3 lily pads, or spatter duck, and then gator. It just didn't give a shit. It was so awesome. Okay, and then at the end there was a little show. This guy came out and talked about gators, so it was pretty cool. One of the only things, I think something I learned from this was that crocodiles don't have tongues. I don't remember why they don't have tongues, but they don't, so I thought that was pretty cool. But I'm pretty sure her name was Susie. So that was kind of funny. This was a bunch of baby gators that they had at the same airboat place. This was just a handsome fucking tree they had. I was just in awe of this tree. Like, this looks like the kind of shit that people paint in, like, fantasy things. So I was just very excited about this tree. This was a boat-tailed grackle. These fellas were everywhere, and they make funny, squeaky calls. And they're like normal grackles, but like big and have this long tail. And this one's a male because it's colored like a normal grackle, but the females are kind of like a dusty brown color. So they were one of the birds we saw the most, but I thought they were pretty cool. This was just a nice picture of the Everglades while we were driving back from the airboats in Shark Valley. This was that later that day I was at the pool. This is a brown anole. If you just like sat by the pool, they would just come out and do their things on themselves, send out their little pouch, but I thought they were quite funny. Oh, he got on the chair next to me, and I sent a picture to Robert on a hot date. Alright, so day 3 was the tour. We took a 6-hour boat tour in Biscayne National Park, which is like 95% underwater, but most of it is like 1 or 2 feet to like, I think the lowest points are like maybe 20 feet. So it's all, it's a bay for a reason. But there's fringing reef, there's patch reefs, there's some islands. I think there might be an atoll or 2, but I had never been snorkeling before. Molly had never been snorkeling before. Molly had never even seen the ocean, but we were just amazed at how clear the water was. So it was like We sailed around and we did snorkeling in 2 different spots by mangroves, and I saw parrotfish and like different colors of anemone, like orange and red and purple, and they said not to touch them, but of course I touched them, and they just kind of felt like Velcro, like coming off of your finger because of the little jabby things, so it didn't hurt me, but they were really cool. There was, I saw a couple cleaner races. Once we went out to a patch reef, there was all this fan coral and a little bit of staghorn coral, and I saw blue tangs and black tangs and so many fish that I don't even remember the names of, but it was just so fucking cool. It was so amazing, and it's the thing I think I was looking forward to the most, and I really think I enjoyed the most of the whole trip because there's a very good shot that things like that won't be around in 10, 15, 20 years. If I ever have kids, they probably won't get to see that, and I wish I could have taken pictures, but we were, like, totally covered in salt and shit. We were just surviving. It was pretty hot. We did not put on enough sunscreen, and we both got horrifically burned. I was peeling for like 2 weeks after, and Molly didn't even want to do anything the next day. But it was totally worth it. Worth every second. So this picture was actually taken on one of the islands that we stopped at, where they used to have a house that was owned by the people that made the Honeywell, like, air conditioners. It was basically like a Great Gatsby party island for him. And, eventually he had to give it over to the government because he didn't build a lighthouse right or something like that, but we were just amazed at how clear this water was, and there was all these tiny little shells. We kept picking them up, and they were filled with hermit crabs, so we had to make sure nobody was in them, but I was so happy to see mangroves and hermit crabs and fish that I might never see again. It was just awesome. So there's me in that same spot with my bikini. You can already see we were looking red, and there was still like another hour after this because we went paddleboarding too, and our I think I have a picture of him. Oh, so this was on top of the lighthouse. You can see all these. Those are some of the islands, and this was the main island we were on. This right here is called like scars in the kelp grass by people who who don't know how to drive their boat right. So apparently, it's really expensive if you do this because it's like $1,000 per like square foot or something like that. So you really don't want to do that. There's another picture on the other side, but you can see this. It's very cool. Just amazing. The mainland's like way, 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 way over here. You couldn't even see it. The water was amazing. It was like bath water. It was like 70 degrees. So this is me and Molly getting sprayed with water, and this back here is Tony, our boat driver. He was pretty cool. I think he said he was like 24 or something like that, but we chit-chatted. The other people on the boat ride were a middle-aged woman from Los Angeles that was apparently really afraid of getting burnt because she had like every inch of her body covered. And then there was a Asian woman from Texas, and then there was a middle-aged couple from somewhere in the Midwest. I don't remember. But me and Molly were living it up. So on top of this boat up here part, there was paddle boards. So after we went snorkeling and ate lunch on the island, then we went paddle boarding. And he took us up to this area that was basically like a little corridor of mangroves, and then it opened up into a little, I want to say clearing, but it was just like a big thing of water where it was only a couple, maybe like 2 or 3 feet deep. And there was fish swimming all throughout it. We saw a sea hare. It was like the size of a football, just munching away. It was pretty funny. I gave it a poke. He was not happy. There was upside down jellyfish of all different sizes. I got Tony to pick one up on one of the paddles for me, and I got to poke the underside of it, so that was pretty cool. So I got to see jellyfish. We saw 3 different lemon sharks. They weren't very big, only maybe 2 or 3 feet, but still, we saw sharks. That's really cool. I caught the vaguest glimpse of a small sea turtle just for a second as it was skirting off because we would kind of scare things away. The little corridor that we went through was a little bit deeper, and there was rocky sides to it. You could look and there'd be fish going in and out. I saw a couple of little crabs. I saw spiny lobsters just hanging out. They were really cool. But one of the funniest things that happened was in that little clearing area, we were just paddling around and we were talking, and then all of a sudden we hear from the middle-aged couple, the dude starts screaming, and we look over, and there's fish flying up onto his board all over by the hundreds, and they're silvery with a darker stripe on the side, and they're maybe like 6 or 7 inches, and they're going crazy, and he's screaming, and me and Molly are laughing, and we go over with Tony because we're like, oh, I want to see what type of fish that is. And then for the rest of the like 20 minutes that we were in this clearing, periodically, you know, if you put your paddle down wrong or the fish went by, they'd all jump up onto your board, and they'd flop around, and the other people were screaming, but me, Molly, and the tour guide thought it was funny as hell. And we asked him, we're like, does this happen often? He's like, I've been doing this for years and I've never seen that happen. So I don't even remember what kind of fish they were, but it was funny as hell, and I am so glad it happened. There's another picture of us on the boat. So that was us afterwards, and I was trying to take a picture of how sunburned I want, but this doesn't do it justice. We were just, like, red. It was bad. Like, it hurt to sleep. We had to go buy solar cane and like aloe gel. Molly went through like an entire tube. So that was all the pictures I took at Biscayne, because we were more doing than I didn't really want to worry about my phone or lose it or anything, so I didn't bother. The next day, Molly stayed home because she was in a lot of pain from the sunburn. I was also in pain, but I couldn't bother. I didn't want to sit around, so me and my mom went out to Vizcaya, which is this it's like a traditional manor that's meant to look like 300 years old, but it's meant to look like 1,000 years old, but it's only like 200 or 300, and it was owned by the John Deering people, the people that started John Deere tractors. It was like a vacation home for them, and so much of it is made out of coral. It's really cool, but the thing that I thought was awesome about it is this is now 5 generations of people on the Denton side of the family that have, like, come there during a vacation, because I went there with my mom had been there with my grandma had been there with her grandma, and her grandma had been there with her grandma, so it was cool to kind of carry on the tradition, plus it was just also a really pretty property, and it's always cool to see that kind of stuff. So, this lizard is a recently introduced invasive species to Florida. I think it was called, like, a red-headed agama or something, but I'm not gonna lie, they're pretty funny, and I got excited every time I saw them because they bob their heads like bearded dragons. This was about as close as I got to one. So this was on the outside of the, but like, you can see all these little speckles. That's not wear and tear, baby. That's just the coral that they dug up out of the ocean and made into this place. So that's so fucking cool. So this was meant to look like a sunken barge that was just off the coast. So it's like, back here, where I'm standing, is like the back entrance of the, it's like the back courtyard of the manor, and then it just goes straight to the ocean. You don't need a backyard, you just have ocean. So, that was really cool. This was just some really awesome mangrove roots that were right on the side of the property. Yeah, this is a nice picture of that coral I was talking about. Coral and marble, what more do you need, baby? More mangrove pictures. I think we learned that there was 3 different types of mangroves, so I think these ones are red mangroves because you can see these red roots. So there's red mangroves that look like that, there's white mangroves that look white, and there's black mangroves that look black. So that's what we learned. I think most of what we saw were either white or red mangroves. This was an instrument room, I just thought it was cool. Nice spiral staircase, again made out of coral. It was like 2 levels, and mostly, it used to totally be open to the air, but they closed it off, so it was actually kind of air conditioned in there. It's pretty nice. This was part of the gardens. I just thought this like coral outcropping and these old fountains were super cool. This was part of the little gardens that was like more cactusy area, so all of these are flowering cactuses and agave. I just like this little corner, and you can see again that this is all shaggy coral blocks, and it's meant to look like it's been here for centuries, but you know, it's only been there for maybe 300 years, but it's still pretty cool. The fact that it's intact at all right on the sea like that is pretty impressive. Here's a nice picture I took of the central courtyard, and this was a fountain that they had, but I like this bromeliad and this nice little flower of the lilies. Oh, so this was like an upstairs courtyard part that was further out in the garden, but these trees were stunning, baby. Look at these. Look at these curvy, beautiful boys, and all this Spanish moss, and there's air plants in there, and I saw orchids, and it was freaking rad. While we were there, we saw 3 different girls taking pictures for quinceañeras, so they were like in these crazy, like extravagant dresses, and haven't gone through costume changes, so that was pretty cool. There's just another picture of the trees. This was a nice picture I took just right in line with this is the side of Vizcaya, so there's basically like fountains and gardens that go all the way around the building, and it used to go way further, but as Miami was more built up, they sold off areas, but it's still a nice property. This was just a giant ball of staghorn fern with orchids on top, so I thought it was cool. And again, beautiful trees. Pretty statue. Pretty garden. There was lilies and lots of dragonflies going around. This is the first decent picture of an iguana I got. This one was, I mean, you can look at the tail. He's maybe like 6 feet long, but I saw a lot of iguanas, especially in the botanical garden, which I'll get to in a second. But most of them were like this size, maybe like a couple years old. I only saw one like full-grown beefy iguana. So this is a flowering orchid still at Vizcaya. Alright, so this is the botanical garden, the Fairchild Botanical Garden, which was also in Miami. We went there after Vizcaya. My mom was tired and it was pretty hot that day. So she didn't want to go. She just hung out in the parking lot and ate some food while I ran around for like an hour and a half. And God, this place was so cool. They had like everything that a normal botanical garden that around here you see has, but it's outside. And it's massive. And there's butterflies and lizards and dragonflies and iguanas fucking everywhere. And it's awesome. So this was just, most of the pictures in here were just cool trees and ferns and orchids and palms, and I just took a picture of anything that I thought was awesome, so we might go through these fast. This is a nice little garden that they had. I met this old guy that lived right around the street, and he was telling me about how to photograph dragonflies, where they like to keep coming around and landing on the same little perch, so if you're patient enough, you can get some really good pictures. It smelled so good right here. Like, it smelled like Hawaii. It was awesome. There's some nice little pictures of them. Is that? It might be a dragonfly, I don't know. But yeah, I like the variegated lily pads. This was the cactus area, so I just liked this really big ponytail palm, but you can see a big crown of thorns over here. We got some yuccas, we got some cactus. It was hot. Oh, they had a artist there that had made some pretty big Lego sculptures, so they were all over. So this was the first of many. Turtle and a bird. I thought they were funny. So I took pictures of some of them because I thought they were cool and I wanted to show Mom. There's a really sexy, I think it's a mother of a million, I want to say. I don't know, but they were really cool. There's some more Lego deer. Lego butterfly right in the native butterfly garden. I saw so many butterflies just hanging out. I mean, I guess it is Florida, but still, you're like, whoa! And they were just outside. They weren't captive or anything. They were just coming in. I don't know what the hell this thing was. I just thought it was cool. There, I saw these the whole time. So this is a queen butterfly. So everybody knows the monarch, but this is the relative, the queen that you normally just find in southern areas. So I saw a lot of these, but I could never manage to get a picture, but I finally got one. So I was happy because I got a little field guide for Florida wildlife, and this was right on the cover, baby. So I got to check them off the list. This was just an absolutely massive elephant ear, and I was in awe at the mass of this lad. There's a picture of me. That's my face, okay? Plant, same leaf. So I'm like right here. It's stupid huge. That's freaking awesome. So this area was really cool. Look at all these tendrils. I don't even remember what those were from. Let's see. Oh, it looks like a chain cactus, maybe. I don't know. Very cool. But, I mean, you could see all these little ferns growing in here, and you got some orchids up in there, and you got some bromeliads up in there. It's just life on life on life, baby. Oh, over there, those are flowering palm again. It's a hunky-ass monstera. There's a nice picture there. I think this was like, they had like so many varieties of palm tree I didn't even know existed, and they're just all over the place. So this was my favorite part. It was the rainforest area. So they basically they made an artificial rainforest outside. They just took a shit ton of like rainforest plants from all over the world. I think mostly like the Amazon though. And they put them outside, and they had these misters going everywhere, and it was like 2 degrees cooler when you stepped into this part. It wasn't covered. It was just, they just had all the plants there, and it was like its own little micro ecosystem, and it was so fucking cool. Like, you can see the sun coming through on this little pond, and all these stuff is flowering, and there was butterflies, and I'd live there if I could. It was so freaking cool. This was a shrimp plant. I thought he was funny, but they smell good. Oh, this is a king anole. It's introduced, but they're like kind of big. Like, they're like as big as a rat. Like in length, not width, but I thought he was pretty cool. I only saw one green anole the entire time I was there. Everything else was, I saw him once, I saw a green anole, and then I saw shit tons of black anoles. Not black, brown anoles. And then that one skink from earlier, and then we saw some agamas. Ah, this is not a, so they had the outside pollinator garden, but then they also had a tropical, like butterfly house, where they had a lot of butterflies and some moths that were mostly from Costa Rica and places like that, but it was so cool. I took a video, but I don't know if it's on here. It was just, they were all over. It was so awesome. There's a picture of an atlas moth they had. They were pretty cool. Nice flower that was in there. And, okay, so I guess the video didn't work, but connected to, once you get out of the butterfly room, they had 3 different rare plant rooms. So one of them was like, 2 of them were just like rare or more expensive plants or from weird parts of the world. So I just really liked these. I think they're a type of like maidenhair fern and these orchids hanging out. It is just totally packed to the brim, and it smelled heavenly, and it was beautiful. It was so cool. It's the kind of place where I'm like, yep, I could just die here. I would hang out here for the rest of my life. Just read a book, drink tea, hang out. But, and then the last one was the last room was a rare, like, they had like a mango tree, and they had like a leche thing, and a banana tree, so it was like all fruits. This was cool. It was a Indian fern tree. But, so, I mean, looks like a tree, but it also looks like a fern. Eh? I'd love to have one of those one day, but you kind of need a greenhouse, but they're really cool. This was some type of peace lily relative, but I thought its flower was wacky, so I took a picture of it because it was cool. There's another picture of that room. It's just nice and foggy. You can see they got some bamboo, some fern trees, some massive ferns, some little ferns. It was like, this looks like I'm in a jungle. If you couldn't see this door right here, look, you're in a jungle. Isn't that wacky? It was so cool. I know you're in Florida, but damn! There was an orchid that was blooming, but you can see how far it came out. Whee! It smelled really good. There was another one. I have no idea what this was, but I thought it was cool. Same thing for this. This is a bunch of little skinny air plants that were in a cluster just coming down. Some cool... They had a really big Norfolk Island pine, too. I recognized that. This was a tree outside by the food place, but it had all these freaking bromeliads on it. I'm pretty excited. I have no idea what this was. Some flower and grass, but I thought it was really cool. Yeah, this was right. This patio was where you ate your lunch. You see a lady over here, and they just had this giant, beautiful tree, totally covered in hanging orchids and Spanish moss and air plants everywhere, and it's heaven on earth, baby, minus the humidity. Oh, I saw this by the one in the back section. I like walked all the way around their palm and bamboo collection, which is basically just like a spread out area with the trees planted around some ponds. But these are Egyptian geese. But they had some babies, so I thought that was cool. I didn't see any gators there. So this is kind of what it looked like. These are birds of paradise that were flowering. I think it's actually up on this tree right here where I found the anole. You can't see them, but yeah, I like the different palm trees. Very pretty. Where is it? Oh, yep, there he is. There's the one green anole I found. So, that's cool. I took a picture of this because it's like Bailey. I was going to send it to my friend Aaron. Be like, this you? Some nice pictures, I think. Okay, you can't see it in this picture. There's a fallen palm, but there's just iguanas all over the place. I thought they're not thorns, but they look like thorns on this were pretty cool. You could just take a rest. Just took some nice pictures in here. Oh, this one you can see it decent. All the holes in here. There was so many woodpeckers in this place. I guess they really like dead palms, so because they were all over. Just a really big cactus. There was me being sweaty. I was still really burnt that day, so I was jumping from like shade to shade spot. So this is a nice picture. I was sitting on a bench because it was hot as heck. Oh, this is an agave that was flowering. Whoop-a-doop-boo. So that was pretty cool. And this type of, I don't remember what this kind of flower is. I think it begins with a P, but they have them in Hawaii, and I was really excited to see them again because I have memories of them and like smelling them with my mom because they smell heavenly. But I thought this was cool because it's so freaking big. Yeah, there's a better picture of it. I don't remember what these kind of flowers are called. If you know, put it in the comments, or if you're future Emily and you remember, put it in the comments. But they smell heavenly, and I was excited to see them again. This was, okay, I have no idea what the hell these things are. They have these wacky roots. They got wacky leaves, like some sort of like monster, like a dracania. And then they got these whack-ass fruits that look like round durians or some shit. Most of them were green like this, but I saw a couple that were like ripe, I think, because they were like bright yellow. They look like a pineapple. No idea what the hell they are. But they had a bunch of these, and I thought they were funny. There's me with a big tree. That's that same big tree, but damn, boy, look at these roots. Oh, baby. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I don't know what it was, but I just love me a good pair of roots when I see them. This was another of the same kind of tree, but a different one. I think, if I remember correctly, there was all sorts of little spider webs in here. They were cool. You can't really see it, but they got all these little nubs on them. They're not native. They might be from Madagascar, I want to say, maybe. I don't know. Oh yeah, these are the ripe fruits I was talking about. Still no idea what they are, but they're funny. There was a dragonfly made out of Legos. There was another one right here, but I cut it out of the picture by accident. And then this was the last picture I took there. I found this in some back lot because I was like walking around the building because I went the wrong way trying to get into the visitor center to leave. But I saw this and I thought it was funny because it is the same color. It looks like Hatsune Miku hair. Alright, so the last day in Florida, we were all kind of tired, so we just went back into the Everglades and just like drove from spot to spot because I saw all the birds I wanted to see except for a rosette spoonbill because I really wanted to see one. So we were just kind of driving from spot to spot, from pond to pond, and we had a nice day. It took a while, but I did finally find one at some pond that began with a P. I don't remember its name. But I finally saw two of them flying over. I caught my glimpse of them, but I was happy. But this picture right here is a black vulture. There was two of them just hanging out on the side of the pond, like within like 20 feet of us, so I got some nice pictures of them. This I took a picture because I thought it was funny. Elevation 6 feet. So we took a bunch of pictures of these when I was on the trip last year in the West, so I figured that was the only one I saw, but I thought it was funny. Elevation 6 feet. There was a nice picture of this is inland. This is just one of the ponds that was that we stopped at that day. Oh, there's a fiddler crab in there. We went back to that Flamingo Beach at the very end by the Flamingo Campground and Visitor Center, and I just bird watched for like 20 minutes while Molly and my mom sat in the AC because they were hot. But I finally got to see all the little shorebirds I wanted to see, and there was just it was really muddy, and there was all these tiny little crabs in these holes, so I was pretty excited. Oh, so this was one of the birds that I saw. A lot of these pictures are kind of blurry because I was standing like way far across the field and taking pictures through my binoculars, but you can see all of these little fellas. So this one was something else, but all of these little ones were like sanderlings, I want to say, and then this was like a black-bellied something, godwit maybe. I don't know. This was a different kind. You could see they were splashing in the water. They were eating little bugs. They were so cute. And they would, like, make tiny little sounds like a killdeer and beep, 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 and, like, shriek. And they'd all fly off en masse. And at one point, an osprey flew over with a fish, and it scared them all away. And they all moved around like a swarm of starlings. It was really cool. But I stood there for, like, 25 minutes just watching these fellas. This was a different one. You can see how big he is and the short beak. I think it's the same kind as that black-bellied one I saw earlier, but this is the... I don't remember if it's a female or a male, but it's one of them. It's the opposite of the black-bellied one. But the black belly means that they're inbreeding. So, and this fella right here, let me tell you. Oh, I guess we'll get to him in a second. Here's more sanderlings. They're pretty, though. This fella right here, let me tell you, this is a skimmer. And they are fucking funny. There was only one of them. There's another one of those black ones, but look at these beaks. He looks dumb, but he's funny. What they do is they have these big wings, kind of small bodies, and this massive asymmetrical beak. And what they do is they like skim across the surface of the water and scoop it up to scoop, like siphon stuff out, tiny fish, little bugs, algae, all that good shit. They're just funny little guys. And they make this weird like clanky sound with their beaks. I really liked him. He was just hanging out. Apparently they're usually in groups, but I really liked him. There's more sandulings. They're really cute. They're like not even that big. Oh, okay, so this was actually this guy was right outside of our park. So this is a white ibis again, but it's a juvenile. But since it was so close, I got to get a really good picture of him. So this is my profile. That was the osprey that flew over. That was the only decent picture I could get of an osprey, but still kind of blurry. And then I think this is the last picture I have. This was later when we were driving back from that. We stopped at this fruit stand that's been around for like 50 plus years called Robert Is Here. And I bought like a conch shell and a sea sponge, which I probably shouldn't have because they probably didn't collect it sustainably, but whatever, I wanted it. But we ate fresh mango, and I got a smoothie made with like mango and papaya and all these tropical shit that they grow down there. And they just had this area in the back full of like random cows and turtles and chickens, and there was emus over here, and there's goats in the back, and they had a bunch of parrots and stuff, and they were actually pretty well taken care of. I was pleasantly surprised, but so that place was funny. Oh, this was the last picture I took. This was a collared dove. They were all over the place. This was on the flagpole right outside of our apartment the morning before we left. So they would make slightly different calls from what a morning dove sounds like, but they're pretty funny, and I liked them, and they were all over. Okay, yeah, so that's the end of that. And then we have... Here's the pictures that I got from Molly. So she took a lot of the selfies, but pretty good picture here. This was on that first beach. This was at the pool. We're not really paying attention here, but this was the Gumbo Limbo Trail. There's a better picture of us. And there's one where my mom's actually smiling. This was, I think, the Mahogany Hammock Trail. We were pretty excited. This was day one, so we weren't burnt. This was that same picture of the strangler fig that I took a picture of. This is at the end of the Anhinga Trail. You can actually see one there. And this is where we saw 2 gators go by. Oh, I forgot to mention earlier. There was one gator that was just hanging out, like, somewhere just vertical like this. And another one went by, and it slowly went up to the other one, and it did, like, that scary gator growl that sounds like a dinosaur to get the other one to leave. It was so cool. I wish I got a video of it. There's us on the Slash Pine Trail with the big old leaves. There, she had to set it up so we could do it, but kind of funny because it's like framed by... This is actually one of the palm trees that was blooming. You can see the blooms are around it. There's me at that outlook. There's a nice picture of us together. I think this was in Shark Valley. I look like a dork. I don't look like a dork. This is Otter Hammock, I think. Nice, a picture in Otter Hammock. This was the cypress forest. Same thing. Okay, this is on the airboat ride, right? Okay, gator, spatterdock, boat, me. Wacky. Wacky. Probably never be that close to a gator again. That was so cool. She didn't give a shit. Okay, yep. So, there it is. Florida trip. It was really cool. I got sunburnt, but it was totally worth it. I mean, you can see in this picture how I was already, like, kind of peeling, and Molly was very red, but it was awesome. I'm so glad I got to go there, and I pray to God that I get to go again, and it won't be totally destroyed, but we'll see. So, if you sat through the whole thing, thanks for watching. I'm gonna go drink some water and probably go to bed because it's like 10:30 and I have work tomorrow. So, yeah, future Emily, stay cool. Bye!